Hey guys, Alex here with Serious Goose Games. Welcome back to our Unity mobile idle game tutorial series. In the last video, we set up our project and made a simple UI we can build off of. Today, we're going to import a script that will help us with big numbers and set up our button so that it makes our money go up when we click it. So to start out, we're going to double click our scripts folder to open it. We're going to right click inside here, go to create, mono behavior script, and we're going to call this big double. After that, go ahead and double click to open it up. So we're actually not going to be typing anything in here. Instead, down in the description, there's a link to the GitHub with all of the code we're going to be using for this series. I add to it as I record, so there might be code in there for videos that aren't up yet. But if you go to episode 2, there should be a script called Big Double. And this is what we are going to be copy pasting. Normally, I wouldn't have you guys copy and paste because you're going to learn better by typing. But this is a massive script, and it was created by Razmpock originally. I've added a couple of things. The big thing I added was a modulus operation. So it's not identical to the original. So make sure you grab mine. And what this script allows us to do is utilize big numbers, which is kind of important for an idle game because the maximum size for a double or a float is not very large, and idle games usually end up with massive numbers. And without a way to handle those big numbers, you're going to end up reaching infinity, and it's going to be a very short idle game. So once you're here, go ahead and click the copy button, then head back to your code, select everything, and paste. Now we have that whole script in our project. We can go ahead and save that. And before we can use this, we need to create something to make the numbers look a little nicer. Otherwise, we're going to be dealing with scientific notation. And for some people, that's fine. I can't stand it. I hate scientific notation. So we're going to head back to Unity, and we're going to create another script called suffixes. So I'm going to right click, create mono behavior script. Now inside here, we can actually get rid of mono behavior. We don't need that. We're also going to make the class static, get rid of start and update. We can also get rid of the using Unity engine namespace because we're actually going to be using a different namespace using system.collections.generic. Now inside here, we're basically just creating a list of suffixes that we're going to add on to the end of the numbers to make them easier to read. So we need two lists. The first list is going to handle kind of our smaller tier. This is going to be like 1,000, million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, that kind of thing. And this is just going to be an array. So we're going to do a public static string array called suffixes. And this is going to be equal to a new string. Real quick before I type in the actual suffixes, I do like that autocomplete is trying to give us like name suffixes, like junior, senior, MD, PhD. That's kind of fun. But we actually want to start out with empty quotes for our first one, and that is going to represent like hundreds because we usually don't add a suffix to the hundreds. But we do want a suffix for thousands, and for that, I'm going to do K. I'm going to let autocomplete finish that out for me. Then I'll do a semicolon. So we've got hundreds and thousands, millions, billions, trillions, quadrillion, quintillion. We have, actually that should be SX for sextillion, and then SP for septillion. Then we have octillion, nonillion. Now after we hit decillion, we start combining suffixes. So we start mushing them together. And this is going to look a little weird. So let's create a public static list. The type is string. And this will be suffix parts, and this is equal to a new list of string. Now inside here, we're actually going to have 4 different lines. The only reason for that is readability. So the first line is going to be essentially like the ones place. I don't really have a better way of describing that, but like you have decillion, which is 10, right? And then you have undecillion, which is 11. The un is 1. Duodecillion is 2. So this is kind of like the ones place part of that. So I'll have an empty one to start, and then we're going to have U for un, D for duo, T for tre, QU for quator, that one's a hard one, QI for quin, SX for sex, SP for sept, O for octo, and N for non. So I'm going to type out the other lines, and then afterwards I'll explain them and let you guys kind of pause and type it out yourself. But I'm not going to make you sit here and listen to me rattle off each one. Okay, so there's our list. If you need to pause and type that down, do so now. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of rattle off what's happening here. So this is just one big long list of strings. each string is going to be used to kind of create the suffix for our number. This first line, like I said, is kind of like the ones place. This is your undecillion, duodecillion, tridecillion, quatorndecillion. Then we've got like our tens place. This is, DC for decillion, vigintillion. Then we get to kind of the hundreds and then thousands. Now you might notice I don't have a full line here for the thousands. That's because our big double will break before we hit anything past that. Because while it allows us to handle large numbers, it's not infinite. It does have a limit eventually. So keep that in mind. The other thing too is you could replace these with literally anything you want to represent your numbers. A lot of idle games do like A, B, C, D, E, F, and then eventually double A, double G, or double B, or A, B, and it will do that system instead. But this works for us. Works for me anyway. So go ahead and save that. Now back in Unity, we're going to create another new script called Currency Manager. And this is going to handle, our money and adding to it and subtracting. So right click in your scripts folder, go to create monobehavior script, call it Currency Manager, and then go ahead and open that up. We're going to start out by adding a couple namespaces. The first one is going to be break infinity. So using break infinity, that is the namespace that includes our big double. And then we're going to be using system.collections.generic. That gives us access to lists and all that good stuff. And the first thing we're going to add is a big double to represent our money. So we're going to create a public big double money, and we're going to do get private set. Next, we're going to create a function that's going to format our numbers and make them all nice and pleasant to look at. So we're going to create a public static string called sign not to US, and we're going to pass in big double value. So what this is going to do is it's going to take a number and convert it from scientific notation to a more readable format using the suffixes we defined. So the first thing we're going to do is create a string called display number. This is going to be equal to $, interpolated string, quote, and we'll do curly brace, and we're going to do value.mantissa times big double.pow with a base of 10, and then value.exponent. And then we have to mod that by 3 because our suffixes are split up into periods, which are multiples of 1,000. Then we're going to format using G3. Then we're going to create an int called suffix index, and this is going to be equal to an int we're going to cast big double dot floor, and then inside here we're going to do big double dot abs, so absolute value, num dot exponent or value dot exponent dot to double. Then we're going to create a string called name. We're going to set this to be equal to string dot empty first, and then we're going to create another int called suffix offset and initialize that to 0. Next, we're going to do an if statement. So if our value dot exponent is less than 33, then we're going to grab our prefix or suffix index and divide it by 3. Then we're going to name plus equals interpolated string. We're going to do suffixes dot suffixes suffix index. So what this is doing is it's checking to see if our exponent is in this first group here, because like I said, each of these is a period. So if we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, we have 11 suffixes here. Each one of them has 3 place values inside it. So 3 times 11 is 33. So if our exponent is less than 33, that means it's one of these. And we can just grab this and add it to the end. We don't need to do any weird splicing. Otherwise, so else, we need to grab our suffix index, set this to be equal to suffix index minus 3 divided by 3. And that removes kind of that first little hundreds or blank space. And then we're going to grab an int called temp suffix index and set that to equal suffix index. And then we're going to grab a list of integers called indices. And this is going to be equal to a new list of integers. So now we want to loop through until our suffix index is 0. We don't want anything left. And that means we'll have spliced together the proper suffix. So we're going to do for int I equals 0. As long as I is less than our suffix index dot toString dot length, then we'll do I plus plus. Then we're going to do an integer. So int last num is equal to temp suffix index mod 10. We're going to do indices dot add last num. Then our temp suffix index is going to be divided by 10. And then we're going to add to our name. So name plus equals suffixes dot suffix parts at the index of indices, index I. We're going to add our prefix or suffix offset to that. After that, we'll add 10 to our suffix offset. So what we're doing here is we're grabbing the last number. So say we have, 332. It's going to divide it by 10 and get the remainder, which in this case, if we were to divide 332 by 10, the remainder would be 2. So that gives us our last number. And then it's going to add that to our indices, go to our suffix parts, and the index of 2 is going to be U, so that would be un. Then it's going to fully divide that by 10 to move the decimal over, so we can do that all over again. Add the indices, and then we move the offset by 10, because every time we do this, we are going up. So we might start out with un, then hit decillion, and then centillion. In this case, for 332, we'd end up with duo, trigitillion, tricentillion, which is kind of a mouthful, but hopefully that explains what's happening here. Idle games are great because of how easy they are to make, but they are very math and logic heavy, which is why they're so good for learning programming. But it definitely makes it a little hard to visualize what's happening here. The last thing we want to do here is return. We're going to do an interpolated string, curly brace, our display number, followed by our name. And I'm going to kind of keep this at the bottom. The next thing I want to do is add a couple of helper functions to work with our money. So the first thing we want is a public void add money. We're going to pass in a big double amount, and that's going to be money plus equals amount. Next, we want to subtract money. So public void subtract money. So same idea, except we're subtracting instead of adding. And then the last thing we want is a public bool called can afford. And we're just going to return if money is greater than or equal to the amount. That'll be useful when we do upgrades and we want to buy something and we want to see, hey, can I actually afford this? And with that done, let's go ahead and save that, head back to Unity. And we're going to create another script called Click Manager. Double click to open that up. And the first thing we want to add is the break infinity namespace. So using break infinity. And then inside here, we're going to create a reference to our currency manager. So private currency manager. And then we're going to create a public big double called money per click and set that to be equal to 1. Now, because all of my managers are going to be attached to the same object, inside start, I'm going to do currency manager is equal to get component currency manager. And now we're going to get rid of update and add a new method called money click. So public void money click. And inside here, we're going to do currency manager dot add money per click. Go ahead and save that. Head back to Unity. And we're going to create one more script called UI manager. Inside here, we're going to add the using TM Pro namespace, and we're going to add a reference to our currency manager. So private currency manager. And then we're going to create a public text mesh pro UGUI called money text. That's the text we created that will display our money. Now inside start, we're going to do the same thing. Currency manager is equal to get component currency manager. And then we're going to create a function below update to update our currency text. So private void update currency text. Inside here, we're going to set our money text dot text to be equal to $, quote, money, colon, and then currency manager with a capital C, dot sign out to you as name. And then we're going to pass in our currency manager with a lowercase c, dot money. And with all that done, we can call that from update. So update currency text, then save that, and let's head back to Unity. So we added a whole bunch of scripts, and we need to attach these to an object. So I'm going to right click in my hierarchy, go to create empty, and call it game manager. I'm going to start out by adding our currency manager, followed by our click manager. and then our UI manager. Now, as we add these things, they're going to ask for certain things. Click manager has money per click. We can see that's set to 1 like we want it to. UI manager is asking for our money text, so we can grab our money display from the hierarchy and drag that into the inspector. And to make sure our button actually works, we want to grab our click object, scroll down to where it says on click, hit the plus button. This little field will show up. We want to drag our game manager into that new field. The no function dropdown will be interactable. Click that, go to click manager, and then money click. Control S to save your scene, and then hit play. Now we can see our text changes to reflect that we have no money. But if we click our big button, we can see that change. And every time we click the button, our money will increase by 1. Now that we can get money, we need a way to spend it. So in the next video, we're going to implement our first upgrade to increase how much money we get per click. That's all for today though. So if you found this helpful, hit like so more devs can discover the series, and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. In the comments, let me know, what upgrade style do you prefer? Some games use single purchase upgrades like Cookie Clicker and Realm Grinder. Others have upgrades that can be purchased indefinitely, like in many Tycoon idle games. I like to have a mix of the two, targeting different systems within the game. As always, thanks for watching. I'm Alex with Serious Goose Games, and I'll see you in the next one.